Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Picture this for a moment. It's early January, the calendar has barely caught its breath after the holidays, and yet the Toronto Blue Jays rumor mill is already running like a kettle that's been left on too long. You swear you turn the heat down, but it's still whistling. That, my friends, is where we find ourselves today, right in the middle of another Kyle Tucker twist that refuses to sit still. Welcome back to the Blue Jays Report, where patience is tested, hope is stretched, and baseball gossip somehow feels louder than the snow crunching under your boots. Every off-season has its heartbeat, and this one has chosen to thump in the shape of Kyle Tucker's name. It's the kind of situation where fans roll their eyes and lean in at the exact same time, pretending they're tired of it while refreshing social media every 10 minutes. There's a strange comfort in that rhythm, because as long as the story isn't finished, it means possibility is still alive. And possibility, in Toronto, has been a rare and precious thing in recent winters. The latest murmur didn't come from thin air either. It followed the Kazuma Okamoto press conference, which already felt like a chapter ending and another beginning all at once. Ross Atkins stepped up, said all the careful words you'd expect from a general manager who knows every sentence will be dissected like a Zapruder film. And then, just like that, the door cracked open again. Not wide open, mind you, but enough for light to spill through. Enough for Mitch Bannon to drop a line that made Blue Jays fans collectively sit up straighter and say, "Hang on, are things actually moving?" According to league sources, Toronto has increased its efforts to recruit Kyle Tucker. On paper, that sentence looks harmless. In reality, it's a grenade tossed gently into a very anxious room. Increased efforts can mean everything or absolutely nothing, and that ambiguity is precisely why it's so powerful. It's the kind of phrase that spawns podcasts, late-night debates, and text messages that start with "I know this might mean nothing," but, and end with 3 crying laughing emojis. The frustration is real, though. By the 7th of January, the off-season feels like it should be further along. Fans want clarity. They want dominoes to fall, names to be signed, and lineups to be imagined with some degree of certainty. Instead, this Kyle Tucker saga has moved at the speed of a scenic canal boat, gliding slowly while everyone on board pretends that's exactly what they wanted. Yet, paradoxically, once that final decision is made, once Tucker signs somewhere, the silence will be deafening until spring training arrives. For now, at least, there's something to talk about, something to argue over, something to believe in. But what does increased efforts actually look like? Are we talking more phone calls, more meetings, or a bigger number slid across the table with a hopeful smile? Were the Blue Jays quietly waiting while the Okamoto situation took center stage, only now able to refocus fully? Or is this simply the same courtship, dressed up in slightly louder language to keep everyone interested? Mitch Bannon's report doesn't answer those questions, and perhaps that's the point. Mystery keeps the story alive, and alive stories keep fans glued. What makes this particularly intriguing is how it lines up, or perhaps slightly clashes, with what Ross Atkins himself said. During the Okamoto introduction, Atkins acknowledged that any further additions would inevitably cut into the playing time of existing major league players. He stressed that ownership support remains strong, that the door isn't closed, but there was an unmistakable undertone of caution. It felt like a man carefully placing one foot forward while keeping the other firmly planted, ready to pull back if needed. Classic Ross Atkins, hedging every bet while still letting hope breathe. And yet, context matters. This isn't just any off-season. This is a World Series window, one that's been talked about in hushed, urgent tones for months. Edward Rogers wants a ring in Toronto, not as a vague dream, but as a tangible goal. You can see it in the spending, in the willingness to push chips into the center of the table. Against that backdrop, the idea that the Blue Jays would simply shrug and walk away from a talent like Kyle Tucker feels almost impossible. If there's ever a time to overstock the cupboard, it's now. Of course, adding Tucker doesn't happen in a vacuum. It reshapes the entire roster conversation. If everyone walks into opening day miraculously healthy, someone will lose playing time. There's no polite way around that. In the outfield, Dalton Varsho's value is tied directly to his glove, so he stays put. But names like Addison Barger and Santander suddenly find themselves looking over their shoulders. They're good players, valuable players, But Kyle Tucker is a different level entirely, and baseball has never been sentimental about hierarchy. Then there's Okamoto, introduced as a versatile piece, open to a utility role if that's what helps the team win. That flexibility is admirable, but it also hints at a reality where he might not play every single day if the roster becomes too crowded. For fans, that's a slightly uncomfortable thought, especially after the excitement of landing him. But winning often demands discomfort, and this team knows that better than most. The funny thing is, the fear of too many good players only really exists in theory. Over a 162-game season, health is a myth. Injuries creeping quietly, then all at once, and suddenly depth isn't a luxury, it's survival. In that sense, bringing in Kyle Tucker doesn't steal playing time so much as it ensures against disaster. A bench bat with genuine star power isn't a problem, it's a dream. Imagine a late-game situation, tension thick in the air, and a name like Santander coming off the bench. That's the kind of advantage contenders drool over. Of course, roster maths still has to work. Someone likely heads to AAA, at least temporarily. Davis Schneider, with options remaining, becomes the practical choice, even if it stings. Nathan Lukes enters the conversation too, another victim of circumstance rather than failure. It's harsh, but it's also baseball. Seasons aren't won by fairness, they're won by flexibility. And over 6 months, those names will almost certainly resurface, called upon when the inevitable knocks and strains take their toll. This is why the idea of Toronto increasing its efforts for Tucker makes sense, even if the details remain murky. The front office understands the fragility of a season, the thin line between a deep playoff run and a year remembered for what might have been. If a premium talent is available, and the resources are there, you take the swing. Nobody complains about losing a handful of at-bats when champagne is being sprayed in October. There's also a human element that adds spice to this whole affair. Kyle Tucker spotted alongside George Springer at a TGL event isn't proof of anything, but it doesn't hurt either. Former teammates talk. Jokes are made. Seeds are planted. You don't have to imagine Springer painting Toronto as a frozen wasteland when he's wearing a grin and enjoying the evening. These moments matter more than fans sometimes realize, quietly shaping perceptions behind the scenes. As the countdown to pitchers and catchers reporting continues, the tension lingers. Roughly 40 days stand between now and the return of meaningful baseball conversations, and until then, this story has room to breathe. Whether increased efforts turn into increased offers or simply increased optimism remains to be seen. But for now, the Blue Jays are still in the conversation, still circling, still daring to dream. So here's where we leave it today on the Blue Jays Report. The Kyle Tucker saga isn't over, not yet. The whispers are growing louder, the signals slightly clearer, and the stakes higher than ever. If you've enjoyed diving into this with us, make sure to like the video, share it with a fellow Jays fan who's equally impatient, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. In a winter full of waiting, staying connected is half the fun. Because whether this ends with a blockbuster signing or a hard pivot in another direction, one thing is certain. This off-season has reminded us that hope is a powerful thing in baseball, and as long as there's a chance, even a slim one, Toronto will keep leaning forward in its chair. And so will we.